listening to the speeches that are being made, I take comfort, as will the public, in reading the recommendation of the estimates for vote environment before the Local Government Environment Select Committee, which said the Local Government Environment Committee recommends that the appropriations for the year ended 30th June 2011 for vote environment, administered by the Ministry for the Environment as set out in Parliamentary Paper B5, be accepted. Therefore, what we're hearing from the other side is well-intentioned rhetoric, but I think the public can take confidence from the fact that the estimates are well thought out and have true purpose that is generally supported widely by the whole of Parliament. It's my pleasure to stand and talk on the 2010 Environment Estimates debate. Total funding sought, Mr Chairman, for the vote environment in this year is $138.893 million, approximately $29 million more than the estimated actual expenditure of $109,976 million in the previous financial year. Perhaps I could break, Mr Chair, just to reassure the member. If he finds difficulty in comprehension, I'm prepared to speak a little bit more slowly for him, but I'm sure he'll catch up in the long term. Baseline funding for the Ministry for the Environment's departmental activities has increased, and this is mainly due to an appropriation of $16.8 million for the proposed new Environmental Protection Authority to process ministerial call-ins and applications under the Resource Management Act 1991. Mr Chairman, the main area I wish to focus on in my speech concerns the vastly significant Phase 2 of the environmental reforms, and two of the major aspects in relation to this, the Environmental Protection Authority and improving freshwater management. At the end of Phase 2, we expect to see improved approval times for major infrastructure projects, better performance from local authorities, enhanced Māori participation, and an increase in confidence from the general public in the RMA framework as they see the benefits of these changes. And I think the Minister outlined for the public during question time today some of the remarkable achievements that are already being experienced. My colleague, Dr. Nick Smith, outlined to the committee the government's priority of ensuring a standalone Environment Protection Authority will become operative by the beginning of July 2011. I'm wholeheartedly behind this. It's imperative that we put great emphasis on getting the structure of the EPA right, getting it up and running as soon as it can sensibly be up and running. The EPA will take a greater role in setting stronger standards for water and for our other precious environmental resources. And in the intention, Mr Chairman, of improving freshwater management so that it contributes to economic growth and environmental integrity is very, very important. Vote environment includes non-departmental appropriations of around $20 million for specific water management and water quality improvement initiatives for Lake Taupo, the Waikato River and the Rotorua Lakes. Work on water management will be a significant policy area for the Ministry and one of the highest government priorities. Mr Chair, last year we initiated a nationwide collaborative dialogue with farmers, iwi, conservationists, power companies, irrigators and recreational groups on water reform through the Land and Water Forum. The government is expecting to receive that report later this month. I think it's worth observing that to have success in the environment, it is necessary to be in step with the equal demands of the economy, the community and corporate culture. All must move at the same pace if success is going to be achieved in any single one of them. There are many examples of this, Mr. Chairman, on the West Coast, particularly with mining. And of course there is the other example of ECAN, a real example of the demands of the environment, the economy, the community and corporate culture being completely out of step with one another and nothing being aligned. The government did step in, took action where others had not done so. Regional councils have been replaced by appointed commissioners. The new temporary structure allows the fast-track completion of a water storage and water use plan for Canterbury. Recent legislative and regulatory changes will improve water management in New Zealand. For example, Mr. Speaker,
Chris Ockenville.
Fine breaches of water quality resource consent conditions were increased through the Resource Management Simplifying and Streamlining Amendment Act. And this appears to have led to an increase in prosecutions by regional authorities. I've enjoyed the discussions we've had, Mr. Speaker, on vote estimates, and so is my colleague here for the Environment at the Local Government and Environment Select Committee. My views are consistent with the Nationals' blue-green approach to environmental governance, such as fostering sustainable development, long-term consistency, reducing delay and cost, and the use of better technical information. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, I could go on at length. Well, I think we should. Because what, for instance, has the previous government done to equal what's being intended in this particular program here? Very, very little. Very little. We could look at the waste minimisation programs that this government is proposing. These appropriations are funded by levies payable under the Act, and the Minister has informed us a statutory review of these levies will take place in 2011. Waste is a singularly important feature of our lives, a singularly important feature. I call upon that member to speak up a little bit. Why what? Well, I don't know that we are wasting time on environmental issues. I don't think we're wasting time at all. Indeed, we are seeing a huge level of increase in the amount of work that's being done in the environmental issues, and a particular concern is environmental reporting, because that has been proven to be wanting, Mr. Chairman, considerably wanting. And so we have a proposal for environmental reporting to be considerably improved. The Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment, who appears before the committee regularly, produced a report saying, "How clean is New Zealand measuring and reporting on the health of our environment?" The report notes, Mr. Speaker, that New Zealand is the only country in the OECD without a statutory requirement for environmental reporting, and proposes measures to improve the way data on the state of its environment is gathered and interpreted. This brings into question what has been happening in the last 9 years when we've heard these constant claims about 100% pure New Zealand. How has it been measured? Not very satisfactorily. The Minister has told us that he shares the Minister's concern, probably the first Minister to do so in the last 10.5 years, the First Minister to do so, to be concerned about the inadequacy of New Zealand's environmental reporting, and that a National Environment Reporting Act is one of his highest legislative priorities. Policy questions to be investigated include the allocation of responsibility for collecting, auditing and interpreting data, and for paying for these functions. This ain't a simple matter, Mr. Chairman, but it is an important one. The Chief Whip opposite thinks it's a simple matter. They've done nothing while they were in government. They've rendered our reports to be inept, and he thinks it doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter. It matters not just to New Zealanders, it matters on a comparative basis to countries throughout the world. We have to have a system of environmental reporting that not only matches our environment, but that does have a comparative feature and is not a piecemeal product which, in the way information is collected in New Zealand, with different data sets being managed by organisations such as regional councils, the Ministry and the National Institute of Water and Atmospheric Research. While these organisations may continue to be responsible for collecting data, it's clear that effective guidelines on the management and systematic use of this material are required. Mr. Chairman, these are some of the many steps forward that are going to be continued on during this period of government with this environmental control being executed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.